Let me tell you something you may have never heard before. When a woman's heart is pure, all of hell takes notice and all of heaven goes to war. Not because she is loud, not because she is popular, but because purity is rare, and what is rare is always valuable. The most dangerous woman on earth is not the one who fights with her fist, but the one who walks away without hatred, forgives without a show, and chooses righteousness when bitterness is more convenient. That woman disturbs darkness. You see, purity is not a feeling. It's not about looking gentle. It's a decision to remain clean in a polluted world. It's a silent war against corruption. A pure heart is heaven's address on earth. It is where God deposits strategy, insight, and purpose. That's why the enemy wages war on your emotions, your soul, your trust, because he knows if he can make you bitter, he can cancel your assignment. But when you protect your heart, you preserve your destiny. Emotional and spiritual detachment is not a sign of apathy, it's a mark of maturity. When you stop chasing validation, when you no longer respond to chaos, when you can say, I release them and mean it, you have stepped into divine authority. Heaven fights for the woman who is too focused to be offended, too called to be distracted, and too pure to be manipulated. That woman doesn't panic. She prays. She doesn't argue, she aligns. The reason some women are misunderstood is because their detachment is interpreted as pride. But you cannot fulfill a heavenly mandate while tied to earthly drama. A woman on a mission will appear distant because proximity to God requires separation from nonsense. She doesn't talk much because she listens more. She doesn't retaliate because she trusts divine justice. Her silence is not empty, it's sacred. God does not anoint clutter. He anoints clarity. And the pure in heart see God, not just in heaven, but in every battle, every betrayal, every closed door. That's why the woman with a clean heart and a clear mind becomes a vessel of divine warfare. She doesn't fight with swords, she fights with stillness. And heaven moves. Detachment is not indifference, it is wisdom. When your spirit no longer jumps at every offense, when your emotions don't need explanation, you have matured into authority. That's when heaven says, now I can trust her with vision. Now I can trust her with destiny. Now I can place the weight of destiny on her shoulders. Every time she chooses peace over pettiness, forgiveness over revenge, purpose over popularity, the heavens record it. And what heaven records, hell cannot erase. That woman, the one with a pure heart, is not soft, she is sacred. She has cried silently in worship and stood publicly with dignity. She has learned that what she loses in noise, she gains in favor. And because she has chosen to live detached from what drains her, she is now connected to what fuels her. And heaven fights for her because she fights to remain pure. Purity of heart is not weakness. It is power under control. In a world that constantly equates meekness with fragility, the woman with a pure heart often gets misjudged. But purity is not the absence of strength. It is strength refined, directed, and governed by divine intention. A pure heart is not passive, it is disciplined. It is a force that chooses restraint when retaliation is justified, that chooses kindness in the face of cruelty, and that continues to believe in goodness even after betrayal. This is not weakness. It is mastery over the soul. When a woman refuses to allow offense to stain her spirit, when she walks away without bitterness, when she holds her tongue in the face of lies, she is not being weak, she is being powerful beyond measure. Power under control is the definition of true dominion. Anyone can lash out, anyone can gossip, anyone can seek revenge, but it takes divine character to remain unmoved, to stay grounded in truth, to love without manipulation, and to keep serving without recognition. Heaven recognizes that kind of strength. God backs the woman who chooses purity, not because she is naive, but because she understands that power misused is power forfeited. She knows that her anointing cannot flow through a contaminated heart. So she protects it not out of fear, but out of reverence. Her strength is not in how loud she is, but in how surrendered she is. She's not easily provoked, not because she's blind to injustice, but because she trusts divine timing and knows her worth is not determined by how she reacts, but by how she reigns in silence. The woman with a pure heart walks with power the world cannot measure, because her strength is submitted, and submission to God is the highest form of dominion. Heaven does not back impurity. It partners only with purpose and righteousness. God does not invest his power in vessels that compromise integrity for comfort or purity for popularity. His kingdom operates on laws, not emotions. And one of the most consistent principles throughout Scripture is that holiness precedes empowerment. The woman who desires heaven's partnership must first align herself with heaven's standard. That means choosing righteousness, even when it's inconvenient. It means setting herself apart, not for applause, but for assignment. Heaven does not sponsor rebellion, confusion, or bitterness. It only moves in alignment with hearts that are submitted to truth and shaped by obedience. When a woman carries a pure heart, she becomes a magnet for divine activity. She becomes trustworthy in the eyes of God. The Holy Spirit rests where peace abides, and peace cannot dwell in a heart that is tangled in jealousy, vengeance, or double motives. God will not pour his Spirit into a vessel that leaks through compromise. So heaven waits for purity, not perfection, but posture. A heart postured in humility, reverence, and integrity becomes the breeding ground for supernatural intervention. That's why battles are fought on behalf of women who remain clean before God, because they represent his kingdom with clarity. And God will defend anything that reflects his nature. Heaven is not drawn to appearances. It is drawn to alignment. There is no spiritual authority in impurity, no divine endorsement in manipulation, and no angelic backing for bitterness. The woman who purifies her heart creates a throne room within her spirit where heaven can rule, speak, and release strategy. She becomes more than a believer. She becomes a partner in divine warfare. And when she walks, she doesn't walk alone. She walks with the backing of heaven itself, because righteousness is the language heaven responds to. A pure-hearted woman is emotionally and spiritually detached from chaos, yet deeply rooted in truth. She is not controlled by the noise around her because she has learned to anchor herself in the stillness within her. She is not reactive because she has trained her soul to submit to the wisdom of the Spirit rather than the impulses of emotion. This detachment does not mean she is distant or cold. It means she has discerned what is worth her energy and what is a distraction from her destiny. She does not chase approval, defend every accusation, or involve herself in every conflict. She lives from a place of clarity, and clarity is the fruit of purity. Chaos cannot thrive in a heart that is set on truth. That's why the woman with a pure heart appears calm in storms that drown others. She is not untouched by life's pain, but she refuses to allow pain to become her identity. Her detachment is a form of protection, not from people, but from pollution. She guards her heart not out of fear, but out of reverence for for the assignment on her life. She knows that entanglement with the wrong conversations, the wrong emotions, the wrong environments can cost her more than just peace. It can cost her alignment. Truth keeps her grounded. She doesn't need to manipulate, explain, or perform. Her yes is yes, her no is no. Her silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. She does not confuse stillness with stagnation, nor detachment with disinterest. She has simply chosen to live above the noise so she can hear the voice of God clearly. And in doing so, she becomes unshakable. Not because life is easy, but because her spirit is anchored in what is eternal, not in what is emotional. Detachment is not rejection, it is redirection towards divine alignment. Many misunderstand detachment, especially in women who are walking in purity and purpose. They assume she is being dismissive, unkind, or distant. But what they fail to understand is that her silence is strategic, her distance is deliberate, and her choices are governed by heaven, not by feelings. She has come to realize that not every connection is covenant, and not every voice deserves access to her inner life. The detachment is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of wisdom. It is her way of saying, I love you, but I love God's will more. I care for you, but I cannot compromise my calling to accommodate dysfunction. She is not rejecting people, she is protecting purpose. When a woman with a pure heart detaches, it's not out of arrogance, it's out of awareness. She senses what heaven is doing. She recognizes the divine timing requires clean surroundings. And so she withdraws, not to escape, but to recalibrate. She lets go, not because she's tired, but because she's been instructed. The Spirit leads her away from noise and into clarity. This redirection often costs her relationships, comfort, and sometimes even reputation. But she knows that destiny demands separation. God never calls his chosen to fit in. He calls them to stand out. And standing out often begins with walking away. Her detachment is heaven's way of positioning her for what's next. She may grieve the distance, but she obeys because she understands that divine alignment is better than emotional attachment. She doesn't reject people, she just refuses to betray her spirit. She has decided that her life must be shaped by God's voice, not by public opinion. And that choice has set her apart as a vessel heaven can trust. God hides his greatest treasures in the hearts of women who refuse to be contaminated by the world. When God is searching for a place to deposit vision, revelation, and kingdom influence, he does not look for the loudest voice or the most visible platform. He looks for purity. He looks for a heart that has not been compromised by bitterness, pride, or ambition. The treasures of heaven are sacred, and God will not entrust them to hearts that are easily swayed by the applause of men or the opinions of the culture. He hides his secrets in the hearts of women who are still, who are quiet before him, and who have been tested in private. The woman who refuses to be contaminated is not naive. She is discerning. She has learned the value of protecting her spirit from the toxins of jealousy, unforgiveness, and desperation. She chooses to walk away from conversations that defile, from relationships that distract, and from environments that dilute her identity. And in that separation, in that purity, God begins to pour. He gives her dreams that shake nations. He downloads strategies that solve problems. He fills her with the wisdom that the world cannot explain. Because she has made her heart a sanctuary, heaven has made her life a secret weapon. Contamination dulls discernment, but purity sharpens vision. That's why the pure-hearted woman sees what others miss. While others are chasing platforms, she is building altars. While others are busy being noticed, she is being anointed. And because she has not allowed the world to shape her, God can trust her to shape the world. The treasures of heaven are too valuable to be wasted, so God hides them in hearts that are clean, quiet, and committed to his will above all else. Heaven is drawn to the aroma of purity more than the appearance of strength. God does not respond to how powerful you look. He responds to how surrendered you are. The presence of God is attracted to clean vessels, not necessarily to gifted ones. In a world obsessed with charisma, confidence, and public display, heaven still values purity over performance. A woman may appear strong to the world, successful, accomplished, eloquent, but if her heart is cluttered with pride, bitterness, or deceit, she cannot carry the fragrance that draws heaven close. But the woman who cultivates a pure heart, even in silence and obscurity, becomes a dwelling place for the divine. Purity has a scent in the spirit realm. It is the fragrance of humility, obedience, forgiveness, and quiet strength. And just like a fragrant offering rose from the altar in the Old Testament, a pure heart sends a signal to heaven that says, this place is ready. That's when God begins to visit. That's when heaven begins to fight. Not because she shouted loud enough, but because she surrendered deep enough. The fragrance of purity speaks louder than declarations. It tells God, you can trust me, you can use me, you can dwell here. Heaven does not seek performers, it seeks worshipers. Not the ones who impress others, but the ones who live in secret devotion, whose strength is born from consecration, not applause. And that kind of woman, whose purity rises like incense, is impossible for heaven to ignore. Angels are drawn to the aroma of her worship. Favor begins to find her. Breakthroughs are released around her. Not because she forced anything, but because she became everything God needed, a holy place. In her stillness, heaven moves. In her purity, battles are won without words. A pure heart is a battlefield. Heaven refuses to lose to the enemy. When a woman decides to guard her heart against corruption, to remain soft in a hardened world, and to love without contamination, she becomes a strategic location in the spirit. Her heart becomes territory marked by heaven. And that territory is constantly under attack because the enemy understands something most people don't. Whoever owns the heart controls the flow. If he can poison the heart, he can pollute the purpose. But when a woman chooses purity, she invites divine warfare on her behalf. God steps in not just to protect her, but to defend the territory of his kingdom inside her. A pure heart is not just a virtue, it is a weapon. It is a declaration to the kingdom of darkness that this soul will not be used for bitterness, manipulation, or despair. The enemy fights hard to defile her because he knows her influence is unstoppable if she stays clean. But heaven fights harder. Heaven places a shield around her thoughts. Angels are assigned to guard her emotions. The Spirit whispers when to move and when to stay still. Because when a woman's heart is pure, it becomes a throne where the will of God is executed. This is why some women experience intense spiritual warfare, not because they are weak, but because they are carriers of something holy. The enemy doesn't waste resources attacking what is already corrupted. He targets purity because it threatens his system. But what he forgets is that heaven always defends what it owns. And when a woman has given her heart to God, it is no longer her battle alone. She becomes a site of divine resistance where purity is protected and the agenda of God is preserved at all costs. The emotionally detached woman is not numb. She is governed by divine wisdom, not emotions. She has learned that feelings are real, but they are not always reliable. Emotions can be temporary, reactive, and deceptive when not submitted to truth. So instead of allowing her heart to be tossed back and forth by what people say or do, she anchors her identity in who God says she is. This detachment is not emotional shutdown. It is emotional stewardship. Really, she does not suppress her emotions. She surrenders them. She feels deeply, but she refuses to be ruled by those feelings. That is wisdom in action. There is a holy discipline in her silence. She does not respond to everything because she understands that not every battle is hers to fight. She has peace, not because life is easy, but because she has chosen to let peace rule over panic. Her detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. She knows when to engage and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to stay quiet. Her boundaries are not walls of pride, but gates of discernment. She guards her space because she values her purpose. People often misread her calm spirit. They think she doesn't care, when in reality she cares too much to waste energy on things that don't align with her assignment. Her detachment protects her purity. It keeps her from being entangled in unnecessary drama and emotionally draining situations. Because her strength is not in how she reacts, but in how she remains, she has made a decision. She will be led by truth, not triggered by noise. She understands that divine wisdom requires emotional maturity, and that maturity makes her powerful, stable in crisis, firm in faith, and fearless in obedience. Her calm is not emptiness, it is authority under control. Purpose cannot dwell in polluted vessels. Purity makes you available for heaven's agenda. God is intentional with whom he chooses to carry out his assignments. He does not release divine purpose into hearts that are filled with unforgiveness, pride, jealousy, or resentment. Those things clog the flow of revelation and distort the clarity needed to carry out a heavenly mandate. When a woman allows her heart to be purified, she becomes a conduit through which heaven can move. She becomes an instrument, not just of worship, but of divine influence, leadership, and impact. Purity creates space, mental space, emotional space, spiritual space for the plans of God to unfold without obstruction. A polluted vessel may still be gifted, but it cannot be trusted. God values character over charisma. He is not impressed with talent. He is drawn to integrity. The woman who has chosen to cleanse her heart of hidden motives, past bitterness, and toxic attachments is not empty. She is being prepared. Heaven uses prepared vessels, not perfect ones, and preparation often begins with purification. That is why some women go through seasons of intense refining, not because they are forgotten, but because they are being made ready. Purity doesn't mean a lack of history. It means your history no longer holds authority over your identity. It means you've chosen to let God filter your life through his truth. And that decision alone qualifies you for divine use. When God finds a clean vessel, he doesn't just visit, he inhabits, he builds legacy, releases power, and downloads strategy through that life. Polluted hearts may carry noise, but pure hearts carry purpose. The woman who keeps her heart clean doesn't have to chase platforms. God brings the assignment to her because she is available, aligned, and anointed for the work. Only purity could prepare her to carry. The woman with a pure heart attracts spiritual warfare because her destiny threatens darkness. The enemy is not intimidated by beauty, success, or status. He is threatened by purpose. And when a woman's heart is pure, she becomes a clear vessel through which God can move powerfully. That clarity and purity become a direct threat to the systems of the enemy. She is not attacked because she is weak. She is attacked because she is dangerous. Her existence challenges lies. Her prayers dismantle strongholds, and her obedience releases breakthrough. She doesn't go unnoticed in the spirit realm. She is marked because her life is a weapon. Spiritual warfare surrounds her not because she is doing something wrong, but because she is doing something right. Her presence disrupts atmospheres. Her purity exposes deception. Her consistency confronts compromise. So darkness tries to distract her, discourage her, and discredit her, hoping she will step off her assignment. But she keeps showing up. She keeps worshiping, forgiving, serving, and believing. Her battles are not a sign of failure. They are proof of spiritual significance. The enemy does not attack what does not matter. He targets what carries weight. Every time she chooses integrity over compromise, she advances the kingdom. Every time she chooses humility over pride, she reclaims territory. Every time she chooses faith over fear, she activates heaven. And with every decision, she grows stronger, more aware, more aligned. Her life is not easy, but it is effective. She is not exempt from warfare, but she is equipped. Her pure heart becomes a shield. Her worship becomes a weapon. And her unwavering focus becomes a declaration. I will not be moved, because the weight of her calling has made her dangerous to darkness. And heaven responds with protection, provision, and power.